Good afternoon, evening, YouTube. It is Thursday, October 10th. You will get this video tomorrow on the 11th. I have made a mistake. I'm still learning how to manipulate this camera. And getting it at my face and letting you see the forest just isn't going to happen. I'm going to have to hold it up like this. That's mildly annoying, but whatever. This one's probably not going to be very long. I am Shaggy Philolitea. You can call me Shaggy, you can call me Shags, you can call me V, you can call me Vincent. Please don't call me Vince. And I just don't like Vinny. Philolitea is a Greek word that means lover or friend of truth and is a religious designation. I am going to continue today with my meditations from a forest on homelessness and life, and maybe doing it this way I'll be able to capture some of my animal friends that I run across out here. I am hiding just on the other side. Hiding is what I'm doing. Just on the other side of civilization, behind a strip mall. And I'm not bothering anybody, and I'm not making any trash. And I'm happy to live the way I'm living. It gets cold at night, but eventually I'll start making money at this. You guys will see the value in me, and you'll want to make sure that I'm not quite so cold at night. But night's the only time. If I still had my battery bank was stolen out of a public library. You can find my reaction to that on the channel. If I still had my battery bank, I could get a lot more done in the day. So, $30, and I can get a lot more done in the day, and I can worry a lot less about my charger. And then another $200 and I can get a coat. I'm gonna go to a church on Saturday and see if I can get a coat, but a good coat. Warm, tested, designed for the kind of living that I'm doing in the water, in the rain, in the snow, in the wind. But really, all I really need, because I've got a poncho and I've got a waterproof jacket, what I need is that insulation against the wind. That's what's getting me, even in my tent. My tent is warm, and then the wind blows and it's not warm anymore. And that has me thinking about how in Lurian Kabbalah, Isaac Luria assigns Mim, which is the word for water, but it's also one of the names for God, as the thing which assigned or brought cold into the year. And you don't really even need Ionian alchemy, the four elements, fire, water, wind, earth, and their associated properties. You don't need all of that in order to understand what Isaac Luria is thinking. And that's that cold enters places. Cold is the breath of Lilith. In a lot of ways, cold is Lilith. But see, it's not the cold that gets you. The cold will get you eventually, but your body is designed to stay warm. If you can get socks, and let me tell you, when I put my dry socks on last night in my tent, that improved things dramatically. So another pair of dry socks. I might have a pair of dry socks now. It got sunny enough that maybe I have a pair of dry socks. But another pair of dry socks, and I'll ask the church for that. Some gloves and a good hat would go a long way toward making my sleep a lot more comfortable. But it's about windproofing. And there's probably a metaphor in that, windproofing and survival. today for me was just about gratitude. It's about gratitude for me every day, and so this one doesn't need to be real long, I don't think. I'm getting cold. I have an animal friend over that way. Sounds like a... Well, it sounded like a bird, but it sounded too big to be a bird, and I guess I don't know all of the noises that deer make with their mouths, but good times. It's just been about gratitude. I've been telling you that I need a few bucks a day so I can have a carb at night so I can sleep, so my body can have that energy to burn in my tent to make heat. And I got a loaf of bread from the kitchen today. See if I can find some ants or something to look at. And so I had a protein and carbs, lots and lots of different kinds of carbs, but a good protein, and took that loaf of bread home. Next thing I gotta worry about scurvy, but they make limes available. And I don't know if they heard my prayers, but they're usually closed on Sundays. And this Sunday they're going to be open for an hour between 11:30 and 12:30, so I'll get to eat on Sunday. Maybe, probably not, actually. I might just take another loaf. Well, I might see if I can fit 2 loaves of bread in my backpack and have a loaf of bread for Sunday. But you know, when they say bread in circuses, those loaves of bread, the loaf of bread I got was a brown loaf with seeds, and all that stuff is nutrients. Bread used to be in Europe, all over the world, but especially in Europe, bread was a staple food. Not just for the poor. Vegetables and other kinds of carbs are extremely difficult to keep. So you make them into things that, if you can keep them from getting wet and moldy, will at least keep. And so, like, French toast is from a tradition of those baguettes. You know this. Get hard. Very fast. There we go. I got some ant friends. And so what they would do is you soak them in a brine of milk and eggs, and you flavor it with some butter and some other things, and then you cook the bread in that brine, and suddenly that hard, inedible bread is delicious again, and it remains nutritious. And now, because of the egg, it has protein and sulfur and all of these other nutrients that your body needs. And so, just having access to bread tonight. I've eaten half of that loaf already to fill my stomach, and just having something in your stomach. Knowing that your stomach is empty, even if you know that it's only 24 hours, or, you count down how long it's going to take until your next meal. Just having something in there. It's nice. I'm cold. It's so pretty. This spot that I've found. If I get kicked off the spot I'm in, this is probably where I'm going to move up to. If I do that, maybe right there is flat enough, but I really need a camp shovel so I can flatten the ground, because the spot where I'm at, where I originally was laid out, was flat, and the spot that I turned myself 180 degrees in it to avoid the wind, and it's just flat enough, and it's just lumpy enough. It's just slightly elevated into a hump enough that I end up sliding down toward the front of my tent, and I can manage it, but I end up sleeping on my belly a lot, which puts my hands to sleep. But it's whatever. These are not complaints. These are symptoms of life. Everybody has it rough. Not everybody, but most of us have it rough. 1% of us don't have it rough. Everybody else has it pretty rough. And in a lot of ways, I'm making this choice to non-compete, to step out of the way. I see these places that have jobs open, and when I think about it, I really think that there are people who need that work better than I do, more than I do. That I can make a living off my words, off my belief, off my faith, and I can use my faith and my beliefs and my life and all of these things that I'm doing on YouTube. I can use them to make the lives of the bus drivers and the people that I encounter on the bus and the people that I talk to on the sideway and the men and women of Christ's table, both behind and on my side of the cafeteria line. I can improve all of their days just with a smile and a thank you and gratitude and genuinely looking at and seeing them. I believe that, and I want to live that. And by not competing with jobs that I'm overqualified for, too intelligent for, I know too much about too many important things to be stuck in a patent office, so to speak. Me stuck in front of a register, even for 8 hours a day. That 8 hours, unless it's after night and then I can't get home, is wasted. It's wasted. I could be reading the books that I'm reading. I could be talking to you. I could be helping you. I could be identifying what you don't know and what you don't understand. And I can be learning about how you listen, what you listen to, and what triggers you into arguing, and then how we can address those things that you want to argue about. I can do all of those things. And so really what I'm thinking about, if yesterday I was thinking about God and I was thinking about Christianity in the early aughts, and I was thinking about conservatives and I was thinking about evangelical Christians, and I didn't talk much about that, but if I was thinking about how facile and wrong biblical scholarship and just Christian academia has been over the last 50 years. Today, last night, I decided that what I would do is what I do, and I would meditate on an audiobook, and that the audiobook I chose to listen to, because I no longer have my Audible Premium or whatever subscription, so I no longer have a huge library of free academic books and great courses lecture to listen to. I would go through my backlog of books that I told myself, well, I'll buy this and then I'll listen to it when I need it in my life. And one of the books that I bought was The Learning Brain, or Your Learning Brain, or something to that effect. And I listened to the first 5 or 6 lectures, probably only 3, but I think it was 5. And I was increasingly annoying myself, because all he was doing was reading Plato. In fact, not Plato, Aristotle. In fact, I gave up on after lecture 5. It just pissed me off, because he starts talking about categories, and he's talking about categorical learning and categorical thinking, and the example and the experiment that he used to prove that that's how people do the thing wasn't categorical. It was something else entirely. But the reason he used that study is because one of his colleagues in the neuroscience or psychology department, experimental psychology department of the university that he works for, Michigan, did the study, and she said that it showed evidence of categorical learning. And I don't want to talk about the thing, but it was pigeons. It was about pigeons and whether pigeons could learn to identify images. And the thing is that the pigeons, they weren't categorically thinking, and the experiment, when they went to children to see how children are different from pigeons and adults, to see how adults are different from pigeons, they weren't, these things that they were describing weren't categorical. They were basically qualitative. They weren't categorical. He was demonstrating, and it was pissing me off, he was demonstrating a willingness, and even you could even say a gratitude, a quickness to steal from Aristotle, because you can assume that your random tech bro who's going to tune in to your great courses lecture has never taken a Psych 101 class. Not only can you assume that, but you can be right. Psych or Philosophy 101 class. And if they have taken either a Psych or Philosophy 101 course, they don't remember anything about it. And so there's a certain amount of adult learning and adult education that assumes that you're a third grader, that you don't know anything, that you've never read anything, that you've never learned anything, that you didn't pay attention when you were in college. And in fact, they make fun of how college students do their best to not actually go to their classes or pay attention in a meaningful way. And frankly, I find that annoying, not just because it's true, but because I'm not that guy, and what I wanted was a primer on what neuroscience says about our learning. What I didn't want is to know that neuroscience has spent all this time and all this energy and all this money just doing experiments of Aristotle. Do you understand how annoying I find that? I find it annoying that astrophysics and quantum physics today want to make the claim that they're doing something special when all they're doing is the experiments that the Ionian Greeks of the 6th and 5th centuries BCE, that's 2,600 years ago, laid out in front of them. And so they're just, all these people today, I made a discovery. Fuck no, you didn't. You didn't make a discovery. And so I'm highly annoyed. I've been highly annoyed with academic and clinical psychology for a long time, because academic and clinical psychology have got it in their heads that they're the fucking religion of the metaphysic. And now experimental, I have been defending for decades experimental psychology as being aware of itself as a sub-school of philosophy, not just aware of itself, but being honest at the beginning of introductions to Psych 101, that Psych 101 is Philosophy 530 or something like that, that psychology is really a PhD level discipline within philosophy. And that it has forgotten that, evidently, in the last decade, really bothers me. But I know where it came from. I can tell you the name of the man who made this a thing. His name is Dr. Stephen Novella. He is the host, the main host. He and his two brothers, I believe, are the other host, but he is the host of the Skeptic's Guide to the Galaxy podcast. And he's a major prick when it comes to trying to empathize with or even understand other people's minds. He's an absolute narcissist, frankly. Dry socks. Good news. Well, I'm back home. And he has no knowledge of philosophy. None. No knowledge. I quit listening. I used to listen to that podcast as well. You've listened to me talk about my podcast experience, so to speak. The podcasts I've listened to in the past and that I really liked. And I listened to about 10 years. I listened to their whole backlog. About 10 years of that podcast. And he never got better. He never became a better person over time. And you see, people that want to sell you, and don't get it twisted, the Skeptic's Guide to the Galaxy, every podcast, except for mine, wants to sell you a worldview. Here, would you like to see what my living space looks like? I keep my head down there because the wind is better. The wind protection is better. I could probably make it even better by putting weight. Actually, you know what? I'll try that. Put some weight on this side right here. Oh, this pillow is just mildew and disgusting. Oh, man. That sucks. That sucks. I really liked that pillow. It's just not going to survive this. so I'm not going to be able to wash it in time. Alright, well, trap that down. I'll let you see some behind the scenes of the Shaggy Philly Titan Light. And maybe some of you out there have done winter camping before, and you can tell me what I'm doing wrong with this tent. That it gets so cold at night. I know that it's not on there exactly even, so that's probably something to do with it. And I know that I got this big gap right here. I'm trying to. Yeah, it's probably just that I have it uneven, right? But anyway, it's really only cold for like 2 hours. It's so funny, I didn't get cold and uncomfortable until about 4 o'clock, and then I woke up at 4, right? Look at my phone and I go, oh my god, it's 4 o'clock. The bus doesn't start running until 5. There is absolutely no fucking way I am getting up right now. So you just sink down into the sleeping bag as deep as you can get, and you tie it off at the top, and it starts to get warm, and then it gets stifling, so then your body stretches back out because you're as tall as I am, 6'4". Sleeping bag's only 7 feet long, so there's really just not enough room to cinch it off at the top, and I frankly didn't have the $80 to get a mummy sleeping bag, which is what I wanted. I wanted a mummy sleeping bag, but I just didn't have the $80. And so I do need to get a liner, and anyway, these clothes are my clothes that are destroyed, but I don't know, I've been using them as a footrest. Got my shoes underneath and doing the best I can. I like it a lot. I don't remember what I was talking about, but I like it a lot. I like it a lot. I was talking about the Skeptic's Guide to the Galaxy and how the reason neurology is the way it is and wants to pretend like philosophy never happened is because Dr. Stephen Novella is a star fucker and wants to be rich and wants to be famous and deeply, deeply envies Dr. Drew. Jordan Peterson, too. They're both a problem because they want to claim, they want to be cultists. And the worldview they want to sell you, again, all influencers, whether they claim to be educational YouTube channels or whatever, are selling you, anyone trying to encourage you to a way of life is trying to sell you something. I'm not trying to sell you anything as far as way of life. I'll sell you other people's work, and I'll sell you books to read, and I'll sell you YouTube channels to watch, and I'll sell you things that contain truth and aren't lying to you. But what I'm not trying to do is sell you on me, my work, or living the way I live. Frankly, don't live the way I live. It's terrible. My feet hurt. My legs hurt. It's cold. It's only gonna get colder. I'm only gonna hurt more. I'm gonna be miserable in a handful of months. But non-zero chance by then, the way you guys are listening. I see you. There are people clicking in. I see you checking out my shorts. I see you getting a feel for my personality. Waiting for that video that kicks you off with the visionary, the revelatory experience, and I value that you're giving me that chance, because Twitter wouldn't do it. Twitter wouldn't give me a chance to just be me. They wanted to be them. They wanted me to be a canvas for them to draw all over. So I appreciate that. Frankly, the only comments I ever get on YouTube are hurtful, but I think from listening to other YouTube channels, I have been prepared for that. I think I've been prepared for that. If people are leaving hurtful comments, that means that other people are going to read, and that maybe they'll argue with them in the comments, and eventually I won't have to. I can just go through and like all the people who are right. And then I can give them that positive bump that, hey, a guy whose religion is being right and being righteous and not just being a good person. Because that's ultimately what your learning brain was trying to do, was trying to give you this, trying to give me this good life in initial caps sales pitch. Well, if you know how to learn, you'll live a good life, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm just not about that. That's eugenics, and I'm not about that. You don't have to be intelligent. You don't have to be able to learn. You don't have to be hyper smart in order to live a good life. In fact, I have plenty of evidence in my own life that people of below average intelligence are the ones that we should be imitating when it comes to kindness. So maybe being able to learn and learn at a quick rate, maybe faster than everybody around you, and then maybe being able to regurgitate it in a way that is understandable is actually a bad thing. Maybe it's harmful. Maybe we don't need millions and millions and millions of people who believe they know everything there is to know about everything. Maybe it makes us shitty to one another to believe that we know anything for certain. I know I get rude and impatient when people want to correct me and are wrong. So maybe the people we need to learn from are the people that we sneer at and that we look down on. And we say, well, your body doesn't work properly, or your mind doesn't work the same as what I'm used to, so you can't have goodness. You can't have niceness. You can't have kindness. You can't have value. I'm going to tell you right now that the woman who gave me my bread this afternoon at Christ's table had cerebral palsy, and she was just as happy to receive a thank you as everybody else I said it to. She was just as excited. She might have been more excited because it probably hurt her feelings not to get them even more. Because by the time you're 20, and she appeared to be about 23, maybe 25, maybe younger, but she was a young woman. And by the time you're that old, by the time you're a teenager, you realize that people are going to treat you different. And the way they're going to treat you different is by being impatient and unkind with you, unkind to you. Condescending if they say anything nice at all. Like, oh, that's so great for a disabled person. Like, fuck you. Fuck you. Just because I have to work a little bit harder to make my arms and legs work doesn't mean you get to fucking condescend to me. That's how I felt for her. So I smiled at her, and I gave her lots of eye contact, and I flirted with her a little bit more than I did the other girls. And does that make me a better person than you? By your metric, absolutely. But no. No, it doesn't. It just means that I find joy in different things than what you do. But you do want to ask yourself whether the things that you find joy in are good for you. Not just good for you, but good for the people around you. Good to be finding joy in. Because if they're not, you're not living the good life. And if you're not living the good life, then you're not living... It's very funny. I just had a conversation with Madge on the phone about the difference in maximization and optimization in the context of turn-based trading card games like Hearthstone, because that's what we were talking about, was Hearthstone. The difference in optimization and maximization. And you seem to want to maximize all the goodness in your life, and what you don't understand is that the goal is to optimize. The goal is to optimize. See, I knew he was making a sales pitch when he didn't say, we can help you think better or learn better. He said, I can help you be better. That's cult. It is. And so I do toe a fine line. But I'll tell you, if you join me and you get into what I'm doing and you become a big part of it, you become a member, you help me with food, you help me with money and clothing and making this life that I'm living permanent for me, and I'll tell you right now that you are in my cult, and I'll find you a role. And see, here's the thing. The last time I did that, giving the nickname and the role drove everyone away and made everybody insane because they didn't know how to live within a role. They got jealous and they wanted to live everybody else's role. And so it fell apart. But now I have experience. And what that means is that if you join me in a cult of worshiping the one God and his ex-wife, the goddess, I'll give you a role. Just like a head coach would do for anyone on his roster. But because we're, in whatever way we are, inventing the game as we go along, the role will be only yours. Because what I like to do is see what's unique in people, see what's them about them, and then enhance it. It's called being a good coach, it's called being a good trainer, it's called being a caring cult leader, I guess. Because what I've learned is that every cult, every religion is just the leader's idiosyncratic approach. Well, I have an idiosyncratic approach, and let me tell you, it is working for me. And so you get to watch it work for me. You get to watch how it works for me. You get to watch it develop. And so what I was saying about Steven Novella, and then I'm done, is that I watched him be the same person for 10 years. I watched him insist on being the same person for 10 years, and that person was flawed when he started, and he had the same flaws when he left, maybe even worse, because of his Dunning-Kruger. And so you have to worry about Dunning-Kruger with everybody, but not with me. I know what I don't know. And I have no problem admitting what I don't know. You know, it might not feel like it to you yet. You might not understand yet. But this is work. You know, my ancestors and my forefathers and forebears and the tradition that I'm doing, like if you think back to the dizzying array of John the Gospel, or the Gospel of John rather, or you think back to my reading of Amos or Ezekiel or any of the biblical prophets, and you think about the way these men behaved. They went and lived right outside the city, and then important people in the city came and visited them and asked them questions. Well, what are we supposed to do? What have we done wrong? And how can we fix it? And I'm here to tell you that most fixes are easy. They usually just take an apology. And that's why the prophets said, okay, well just go into lamentation. Just go through your grieving rituals, but not for any particular person. Just go through them for the values of your state. And when they do, God relents. Because when you take the time to recognize that the value of your state has gone decrepit, that you no longer are valuable as an export product, your culture is no longer viable, things change. But you have to take the time to mourn as a civilization. And our civilization, the United States, the West broadly, refuses to just take the time to mourn what went past. We gave Germany exactly zero days to mourn either of those wars in the 20th century. We've given Japan no time to mourn. Look how they behave because they can't mourn. So mourn, grieve, find acceptance. Find acceptance and grieve. I'm sure that people think I'm a crazy person in public. I know while I was recording Final Fantasy and talking to myself, I know I had a woman filming me, taking pictures of me to send to her friends because she had to have thought I was absolutely crazy actually talking to myself about what I was doing. And so I know not everybody understands that this is work and this is labor. But you will someday. I both trust and believe that. And I'm here working for you. Talking to God about how I can help you get to the good life, not just the Epicurean good life of good food and good drink, but how to appreciate Ecclesiastes, not just as maybe even sarcastic sadness and dissatisfaction, but a kind of joyous dissatisfaction with life. Because the teacher, Solomon, is not who wrote it, but Solomon is the person we are meant to identify as the teacher was very explicit. Yeah, everything sucks. Yeah, we're gonna die. Yeah, our civilization is eventually gonna collapse, and we are eventually gonna be forgotten because the wheel of time turns on. So today we eat, we drink, and we be merry. And yeah, I don't touch alcohol. But I got to eat. I will get to eat in my tent before I fall asleep. I have water. I got to have 2 cups of coffee today. And I am merry. And that's enough. Hopefully having done this for so long out in the open by my tent hasn't attracted strangers. I think I saw somebody standing up there watching me, so hopefully not. The majority of this town seems like it's actually pretty cool people, especially the poor people, especially the people who actually have jobs, who are actually human in a meaningful way, who understand that I'm not bothering anybody. And I'm not mad at the last spot, the manager who kicked me off that spot. I was at the door. They go out to leave for the night. I was sleeping maybe 20 feet from there. And, again, from her perspective, I was calling a live broadcast for Twitter Spaces of a football game some Thursday, or it would have been a Sunday night game. And so it sounded like I was having a good time. And that's what really bothers me, I think, about this world the most, is that what we don't want is for homeless and poor people or unemployed people to have a good time. Because you think you have your job for the same reason that your parents told you when you went to school. You take care of your responsibilities so you can have a good time. And that's just nonsense. That's just the thinking of a very, very, very stupid person. You take care of your responsibilities and have a good time. Why is it so hard to have a good time at work for everyone? Why, because you hate being there? Well, you hate being there because you refuse to have a good time. And so you make everybody else's time miserable, because what does misery love? Misery loves company. You know who doesn't love company? Someone who's having a good time. Yeah, I don't want you out here at my spot. I don't want your chatter. I don't want to hear your inane bullshit. That's why I left Twitter. That and the anti-Semitism. I get so fucking sick of people telling me that Jews need to die. I get fucking sick of hearing it. You, maybe. Not them. They've never done anything to anybody. You don't even need to read their books to know they haven't done anything to anybody. If they'd done anything to anybody, there'd be none of them left. A long time ago, they've been at war with every single language group, every single major civilization, except maybe China. For 3,000 years and more. So I'll end on this. I decided to pivot back to Eric Klein's after 1177 BC. So the first book was 1177 BC, the year the world ended, something like that, civilization collapsed or whatever, something dramatic like that. And then the sequel is after 1177 BC, and it's very funny to me that the world after the Bronze Age, or late Bronze Age collapse, the story of the world after the late Bronze Age collapse, is basically the story of Jewish diaspora. How Jews, literate Jewish men and women, saved civilization. And so there are books like How Ireland Saved Civilization, and How Beer Saved Civilization, and this idea that just because the Jews weren't ever all of the things that their folklore claims that they were, doesn't mean that there's not an historicity and an aletheia in those books. You understand? Because the prophets were sons of Adam, not Israelites. Seth third son of Adam. His name means, I'm going to put you down over here, and I'm sorry for the darkness. Taking my shoes off. Seth, Adam's third son, his name means compensation, which means that Cain and Abel were seen as the scapegoat ritual. That means that Abel was seen as a sacrifice to God. That Cain sacrificed Abel and initiated the Azazel myth. And so, what the Jews are trying to show, what the Torah authors are trying to show in that story by having that scapegoat motif play out over and over and over and over and over again across Jewish time, however long you choose to reckon that story keeps playing out, is an acknowledgement of the cyclical non-linear dream time. And so what that means is it's a broad and outright acknowledgement that time actually does move in cycles. But what it is specifically is a denial that it moves in specific cycles dictated by the heavenly bodies, the extra planetary, like extra earth bodies. See, Hinduism, what you don't understand is Hinduism was already astrological. The Sumerians were already astrological. They were already studying the stars and doing the kind of alchemy that the medieval Muslims and Christians were doing. Whether you would consider them Muslim or Christian after their alchemy is up to you, but I gotta take this sock off and it's gonna hurt like a motherfucker. I have the most exquisite blister on this foot, and oh, my sock is attached to my band-aid, so this is gonna hurt so bad. And I legitimately don't remember what I was saying, but the ouch stuff, oh my god, that blister is so gross to look at. The stuff that you associate with magic and with medieval monks getting in the way of goodness, and all of this was already going on before the Jews got up into Mesopotamia. And so, if you're a literate person in the ancient world, one of the things you're doing, especially as the 600s BC approach, because you understand that the 500s are Periclean Athens, the 400s are Plato, the 300s are Aristotle, this sort of thing. Like, you understand this is how that progresses. That it used to be there was one, maybe two big innovations a century in thought, and then boom, the Ionian Greeks dropped modern science on everybody's heads. And so after the Ionian Greeks started doing that, if you were going to be an intelligent person, and intelligent doesn't mean what you think it means. Not even close. It just means a person who works with their mind, who works with their intellect, and who uses that to approach God. And so to have a lot of intellect means to have a lot of God in you, to have a lot of the ability not just to think and to reason and logic and that facile nonsense. It means to have a natural spark of the goodness of divinity. And so I've told you that this one wasn't going to be as long, so I got to cut off before an hour. Jesus, didn't think I was going to talk this long from the inside of my tent. But that means that I got to find a way to explain to you the difference in divinity, deity, and theon. And that's not going to be easy, because these are huge words. Huge words. theology is not simple. It's very old, and it's been very confused since the post-medieval Christian period, because the medieval Christians figured it out and they understood it and they wrote it and explained it in a way that makes sense. Because to be a medieval Christian is to be a modern third grader as far as your intellect, what information you have available to you, the vastness. And so what that means is that there's no excuse. There's no excuse to condescend to adults who have the information that medieval people have but didn't connect it all together, because you were never taught how to make connections deliberately in your brain. When I talk about my mnemonics, that I associate things with words instead of with images, and so sometimes it just means stumbling on the word that connects me back to my old thought, and then of course that leaves me needing a mnemonic to get back to where I left off. But I like that. Honestly, if you ever take LSD, that's just what it's like. And so that just means that's what raw, naked consciousness looks like. And so maybe what I need to call myself is the naked shag or something. Naked, like shaggy, naked philosophy or naked truth, something like that. Who knows? Maybe I need to lean into my love for Simka Yakubovich and the Naked Archaeologist. But yeah. Thanks for listening. I know it's taken you guys some time. I know it's taken time. I know it's going to take maybe years for people to go back and watch this backlog and understand. And I also know that people from my previous life told me that what I need to do as a philosopher, as a religious man, is to live my life in a way that's inspiring. Well, I keep telling you that I find inspiration weak and facile. I would rather you inspire me and allow me to learn from you to demonstrate what learning looks like so you can reciprocate with the conditions of my learning, you understand? I would rather do it the opposite way. I would rather listen. I've always been a good listener. I've always preferred to listen. I'm washing my feet, if you really need to know what that noise is. I've always preferred to listen, so now it's my turn to speak, and you're just gonna have to learn, I suppose, to like learning that everything you've learned up till meeting me has been dead-ass wrong, because the people who wanted to tell you that they were teachers were motivated to lie to you. I know that no one wants to really hear that. I had an ex ask me if I just like destroying her life before I came into it. She didn't ask me, she accused me of enjoying tainting her memories of her favorite people. And it's like, well, all of the stories that you're telling me about your favorite people, those people loathed you. And all I did was ever ask if, like, you ever considered that maybe they didn't like you as much as you thought they did. But that's called self-critical. That's called being self-critical, and that's called keeping your eyes open and your hands up, because you never know who's lying to you about loving you. You can really only know they're lying to you about loving you if you test them. And so this is what I'm going to leave you with. Through 5 lectures about how the brain works, how my brain works, how your brain works, how learning works, how memory works, how personality forms, these things. After 5 hours, 5 lectures, my only real takeaway is dual in nature. The first is that you don't want to associate memory with images. He gives you this life hack of associating memory with images. Don't do that. Just don't do it. Not everyone is an imagistic thinker, and he clearly doesn't know that. So just don't do that, because humans are not naturally good at images. You don't need to think in words. You just need to think for yourself. But the biggest takeaway that I had was him saying that what you want is to practice making connections in your brain between the cells of your brain. And that the best way to do that is what I am doing right now. So I can be a testament and a witness, and you're just gonna have to believe me that it works. You understand? The best way to learn is twofold. There's 2 steps. Do not do more than 3 reps in an hour if you're doing 1 hour a day practice sessions. When you get past 2 reps, you're doing irreparable harm. The 3rd rep feels like you need it, but the fact of the matter is that every day you learn more from your practice session, from your first rep, than every rep after that. You are just as good tomorrow as you were today after your 2nd rep. So you're better off, instead of the example they used is a tennis player doing forehands and backhands, and the way it usually goes is you do 100 forehands and you do 100 backhands and you do 100 this and 100 that. What's better, say you're a guitarist and what you want to do is practice a song, it's to play it at the speed that you can play it once, twice, and then play an entirely different song with entirely different techniques. That's the best way to learn. And so what I do is I spend an hour in one book, an hour in another book, an hour in another book, an hour on a video game with my thoughts, and then an hour with you, with my thoughts, trying to think and talk about different subject material each time. And then what I'm doing is reinforcing the connections of my memory with step 2. Actually, I'm going to give you 3 steps. I'll give you 3 steps. I'm that magnanimous. I'm just so great. Can you appreciate how amazing I am? The 2nd step, after you practice 2 reps and change up your routine, sorry, I'm in a lot of pain and it's making it difficult for me to concentrate all of a sudden. Minimize your reps. Maximize and optimize the number of things that you're doing with your time. And then use the different things you're working on to contextualize and add connections to the other things. So the second thing that you want to do is you want to talk to strangers or people that you know, but you want to test your knowledge by sharing it with other people. Both of these things are things I do. And I told you, I listened to that book, I listened to that lecture for 5 chapters, and now I'm telling you what I remember about it. I'm testing my memory to see what I remember about it. The 3rd step is to get 8 hours of sleep on a full stomach, because you will wake up with almost perfect clarity memory of everything you studied, because your brain was working on it while you slept, and you had the carbs, etc., in your belly necessary for your brain to continue working while you were asleep. Because as I keep telling you, the way I suspend these plates in the air and I'm working on a lot of different thoughts all at once, that's because what I'm doing is called integration. I'm integrating a lot of different things into my neuronal network so that they get incorporated and old information gets disincorporated. I look spooky as fuck on the video, and that's great. It gets dark, y'all. Alright. What I want you to do, I want you to sleep. I want you to do fewer repetitions when you practice. And I want you to think about things besides what you're practicing while you talk to the people in your environment. And you will be stunned. In 2 days, I guarantee, You will be stunned by what you learn. Thank you for being here. I have been Shaggy Philalidea. You are awesome and only going to get better. Eyes open, hands up, kids. Shaggy out.